Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse and yet another breakdown. As today, we will be breaking down and giving our initial thoughts on episode 9 of the brand new Marvel series on Disney+. Of course being Daredevil Born Again. Seeing the return of all of our favorite characters from the original series that was on Netflix, and now mixing it into the MCU with a brand new storyline, while still keeping the same dark tones as its predecessor. Anyways though, this episode, being the finale of the first season, is titled Straight to Hell. And this episode begins directly after Bullseye took the shot in the previous episode. He was aiming for Fisk, but Murdock jumped in front of the bullet and saved Kingpin's life. But this all takes us into a flashback scene 1 year prior to all of this, as we see Vanessa meet with Poindexter as they prepare to release him from prison. This is where she hires him to kill Foggy Nelson, all because he was getting a little too close to her business operations in Red Hook. Now here, they also mention the character of Nadim, an FBI agent from the original series, who I'm sure you all remember if you watched that show. However, he was killed by Bullseye after he began to work against Fisk and was close to testifying against him in court. We then head back to the present day as Matt wakes up in the hospital, joined by Heather and Kirsten. However, when Heather greets him, Matt actually calls her Karen. This just shows who he still really loves and of course will always have a soft spot for. He tries telling Heather just how bad Fisk really is, and she still is not coming around and still does not realize. Even after Matt was shot in front of him and for him, and he just tossed him to the ground and left him to die there. We then cut to Fisk as he meets with all of his top associates. He wishes to gain access to the power of the city and shut it off, because he wants his task force to hunt down the vigilantes of the city, while the city goes into peril without any power, masking Bullseye's initial attack on only him as an attack on the entire city. After dismissing everybody, he orders Buck to head to the hospital and deal with Murdock. This is a bold move, which is said later in the episode, as he's not going after Daredevil here. He is just blatantly going after Matt Murdock, the same guy who just saved his life in front of everyone. But if you think about it, if Fisk were to ever try and reveal Murdock as Daredevil, that would crumble his entire campaign and run as the city's mayor, because Murdock saved his life at the dance, which would mean a vigilante saved his life. Anyways though, Sheila ends up meeting Commissioner Gallo in the halls after Kingpin's meeting. He tries to sway her to his side, and it does seem like she is worried about everything going on, and is definitely not on board with Kingpin's plans and decisions. But this entire meeting with the commissioner is revealed to have been recorded by Sheila later on, and she shows it to Fisk. So when the commissioner is heading back home, one of the task force members drives him elsewhere. Back at the hospital as Buck arrives, prepared to take Matt out. But as the power goes out in the hospital, Matt sneaks out of the hospital room just in time and heads straight back to his apartment room, still in the hospital gown the entire time. However, he is not alone when he gets back home, as none other than Frank Castle, the Punisher, is all freshened up, suited up, and waiting for him. as he says he got a phone call that changed his mind about helping Matt out. But before they can talk anymore or catch up anymore, the anti-vigilante task force arrives at Matt's apartment, and we get a big fight scene in the room, with Punisher and Daredevil working together to take them down. Of course, we have the different contrasts of the characters, as Daredevil is only fighting to knock them out or just make sure that they can't fight anymore, while Frank just goes full force and kills them. And mind you, it is brutal. That is for sure. They end up taking down every member of this squad, which was led by Officer Cole North, and Frank finds the bullet with his logo on it, and it is revealed to be from Cole's gun. So this means that Officer Cole North was the one that also killed Hector Ayala, the White Tiger. Daredevil knocks him out, but clearly is struggling and has those thoughts of just killing him for what he did, as he remembers everything that has happened. Of course, he does not go through with it though, and this sort of sets Frank off, because Frank thinks everyone there should realistically just die, because they are all corrupt and are clearly not good people. But it really doesn't matter if they spared Cole's life in this scenario, because in the end, the entire apartment building is practically blown up by grenades after the two escape down back into the streets, and are then reunited and picked up by Karen. Now, when it comes to the character of Officer Cole North, this is one aspect from this season that was a bit disappointing to me, because they have completely changed his character up, at least when you are comparing it to the comics. Making him a full-fledged corrupt cop who then works with Fisk and then hunts down vigilantes to kill them is definitely a change. And unless he somehow survived the apartment being blown up, there really is no room for any sort of redemption that they could pull off for the character. But I guess you can always say never, but I highly doubt it. Anyways though, back to the actual episode, as Matt and Frank get patched up from their fight with the AVTF. Matt tells Karen that it was all a hired hit on Foggy, done by Vanessa. So the two head out to go and look over the legal files to find out what Foggy was about to uncover that ultimately got him killed. We also learn that, of course, Karen was the one who called Frank to go and look after and help Matt out. Frank will always come in to help Karen out as he cares for her deeply. And we have seen that developed even further when he overhears the AVTF talking about going hunting for the Blonde and Daredevil, which makes him end up going hunting himself. Anything to keep her safe. Daniel and Buck then meet with a few members of the city council, who are clearly not fully on board with Kingpin's Safer Streets plan, definitely threatening their lives if they do not agree with the plans by the time that Fisk addresses the city. And as the city falls into complete chaos, the AVTF go around literally shooting people and then pretending that they were masked vigilantes to make it look quote-unquote justified. But while all of this happens, you really wonder where all of the other heroes and vigilantes that live in New York are. Like Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Misty Knight, etc. But maybe we have something cooking for season 2. More on that in a bit as well. Matt and Karen then look through all of the files and they end up finding Foggy's old files on Red Hook. They figure out that it is a free port, meaning that it is completely free from any sort of taxes, tariffs, or any law practically, which would have exposed Vanessa's illegal business practices, which is why she had him killed. While they are here, Matt also finds an old old box of his and Foggy's things, specifically the avocados at Law Sign. This is an old joke from the original series. Anyways though, Frank then arrives at the port and faces off against the AVTF, who are completely stunned by his appearance, because they are all crazed fans of his. But he does not care about any of that, as he starts killing them one by one, even leaving the lights covered in blood after his kills, giving them a red glare, which I think is some great symbolism for Daredevil. But eventually, Frank is overpowered and then taken prisoner by them, coming face to face with Officer Powell afterwards, who tries to get Frank to join them because he thinks that they do the same thing for the same reason, so they can just work together instead of fight each other. Frank calls him and all of them clowns, saying he wouldn't even piss on them if they were on fire. Frank does what he does because of his life, his pain, his past, and his loss, and what it has taught him. He doesn't do it just to do it, and he for sure does not do it because he was ordered to do it by the fat-headed Kingpin, as Frank called him earlier in the episode. This entire conversation is evidently based off of his conversation with the cops who had his symbol on their vehicles in the comics, where he threatened to come after them and kill them if he ever saw them with it again. While this is all happening, Commissioner Gallo is brought to Kingpin, who beats him down after saying that he was never there for all of these cops who are now in the task force. Gallo says that Fisk has never changed, and this all leads to Gallo's death by the hands of Fisk, as he gives us one of the goriest and most gruesome deaths in the entire MCU, as Kingpin literally crushes his head, pulling an Omni-Man, you could say. Cutting back to the port as Karen and Matt show up, but after realizing there is practically an army of the AVTF down there, Matt backs down from going there all alone, because he would either die or he would kill. In order to take them and Fisk down, they are going to need an army of their own. Now after this, Matt has a conversation with Karen about how he realized he was not immune to the darkness, and how he has let it take him over in the past. I mention this now alongside the entire army talk because of where season 2 could possibly be heading. We obviously see him at Josie's bar with Karen, Cherry, and a few other characters, but that obviously cannot be his army that he's talking about. So our first thought when he mentions an army is the return of the Defenders, which I truly do hope happens. We could see all of those characters from the original Netflix series come join with Daredevil, and maybe even add characters like Angela Del Toro, the Swordsman, and maybe even Moon Knight if we're lucky. But another thought that I had was the Hand being brought into this. I know that we had the entire Defender show, but in season 2 of Born Again, Matt will reportedly be wearing a black suit. And as I have mentioned in a previous breakdown, one of the times he wore a black suit in the comics was when he took over the Hand and was possessed by their demon. This whole talk about not being immune to the darkness could also be hinting towards a possible head into a Shadowlands type of story arc. But who knows, I could be reaching. All I know is the people we see in Josie's bar are not enough. That is for sure. Anyways though, after Fisk addresses the city and lies about Gallo resigning, he heads underground with Vanessa as he has a bunch of cages full of his enemies, including Swordsman and of course Punisher, two characters that will likely also be joining Daredevil's army for season 2, as they are vigilantes. We also get a quick few shots of other characters such as Angela Del del Toro and Bullseye, who may also be joining Daredevil's army for the second season, as Matt gives a monologue throughout all of these scenes about taking the city back, as this is their city, not Kingpin's, as he says that they live in a city without fear. This is obviously a nod to his nickname and comic book series, The Man Without Fear. As Daredevil looks out the window at this now new city, as the red lights flash on him, the episode ends off. But not officially, as we actually get a mid-credit scene, as Punisher lures one of the guards towards his cage, breaks his arm, and steals his keys to break out. This is very likely going to lead into the Punisher special that we are supposed to be getting, which will in turn also likely lead into the second season of Born Again. But anyways, this is where the episode officially ends off, along with the first season of Daredevil Born Again. And overall, I thought that this was a very good episode and finale. The action was phenomenal, and it really shows that they are not holding back whatsoever, and truly are keeping those dark and gritty aspects. Some of the CGI blood may look a little bit wonky if you look at it hard enough, but to be honest, at least for me personally, it's not a big issue. I seriously cannot wait for season 2, even though we won't be seeing that for another year. This was by far the best MCU finale for a season on Disney Plus, in my opinion, and I think it is also easy to say that this is my favorite series that they have done on Disney Plus as well. It also leaves off at a perfect point for the second season to pick up from. This entire season was great as well. There were definitely a few weaker episodes compared to others, but that is typical television. And I would also say that you can definitely tell that they had a few remakes or rewrites, which was a big thing for this season, but other than that, it was good. There were also a few disappointing points or character arcs, specifically Cole North and Muse for me. I felt Muse was a bit rushed, and of course Cole North was just done dirty compared to the comics, but either way, I loved this episode and overall loved the season, even if there are a few things I may have not liked entirely. I believe I would give this episode a 9 out of 10, and the season as a whole, probably an 8 out of 10. Now in terms of ranking, I don't think it beats the first or third season of the original series on Netflix, but I do think it is better than the second season. But yeah, that about does it for this episode, and now the first season of Daredevil Born Again, from me at least. But of course, I would like to hear your thoughts on it as well, so make sure to leave them down below. Anyways though, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed our breakdown and review on this episode, feel free to give it a like. And with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.